Hey there, Scorpio Ascendant. This is a forecast taking you from Monday, the 10th of November to Sunday, the 16th of November, 2025. And if you're anything like me, which you might be, because I've got Scorpio Ascendant as well, you might be wondering what the heck happened in this last week. There's lots of different shifts that happened last week. We had Mars going into Sagittarius. We had the full moon in our 7th house. We also have Venus going into our own sign, the sign of Scorpio. We've also had Uranus retrograde into our 7th house. Again, that happened yesterday. And today, as I'm recording, we've got Mercury going retrograde in our 2nd house of money. So that's a lot to deal with just from last week. And you'll probably be kind of pleased to hear that there's not too many big movements going on in this week ahead. So there's only one exact aspect between two planets, like, you know, a major aspect that's happening in this week ahead, and that is Mercury in a conjunction to Mars. And so I'm going to dedicate this whole forecast actually to the energy of Mercury in a conjunction with Mars across the week, and also comment on the moon going from the sign of Leo to the sign of Virgo and to the sign of Libra, which is what it's doing this week. So if you're new to this channel, by the way, my name is Louisa. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. I get really nuts and excited about astrological and planetary patterns. And so this Mercury in a conjunction with Mars is a big one. So usually they will meet up once a year together at some point. But in this year, Mercury is having a retrograde soon after the first conjunction. And what that is meaning is Mercury, you know, past Mars in November, made a conjunction in the sign of Scorpio. Then they both ended up in Sagittarius. Now Mercury is about to backtrack straight over Mars again in Sagittarius. And then later on, it'll be the 18th of January, almost 2 months later, Mercury is going to catch up with Mars in Capricorn. So we've got 3 of these conjunctions through Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. And so not only am I talking about this week ahead, but also putting out there that maybe there's a pattern, maybe there's a link between each of these conjunctions. And so what's going on this week is part of a series that started on the 20th of October, and it's going to take you until the 18th of January. So are you ready? Are you ready to go into this? Let's have a look. So as ever, when I start my videos, I'm always just giving some thanks for the people who helped to sponsor my channel and helped to sponsor me via school and my membership. So thank you so much, because I couldn't do this without you. Really, really helpful. So here are the charts. This is the first one. And what you'll see here is we've got, this is from obviously a Scorpio perspective. This is also a whole sign Western tropical model that I'm using. So there's like one sign per house. If when you look at your birth chart, you see that you've got Scorpio and Sagittarius in your first house, then you might also want to listen to the Sagittarius forecast. That will also be applicable to you. So anyway, you can see here that you got Mars and Mercury in this 2nd house, and at the beginning of the week they're really close together, and by the end of the week they're further apart and they swap places. So, you know, they've both been going in different directions and they've kind of met in the middle, and they're meeting in the middle on the 12th. That's Wednesday, the 12th. That's it. You know, it's a very, very focused day, you know, with these two planets making an exact conjunction. But also on that day, we've got the moon, which is going to be in the early degrees of Virgo. You know, and when the moon gets to 6 degrees in the sign of Virgo at some point, on Wednesday, there's going to be an exact square between the moon and Mars, and an exact square between the moon and Mercury retrograde. And of course, Mercury retrograde and Mars are exactly together, you know, so it's a very, very potent day. And so I'm going to obviously talk about that. Before I do that, though, I want to talk about some of the energies of Mercury, Mars in a conjunction, what it means when Mercury is also retrograde, also when it's in Sagittarius, and also when it's in the 2nd house, because that's what we're dealing with here. So first of all, you know, Mars is your ruling planet, or our ruling planet. It's one of our ruling planets. So it makes this conjunction a lot more sort of specific to us, to the Scorpio energy. You know, Mars in the 2nd house is a time when we're really raring to go, like really raring to go in terms of our career, in terms of our earnings. We're ready to, you know, put out our pricing. We're really happy to ask for business. We're really happy to consider how we might earn more money. It's, Mars brings out the competition and the confidence and the determination to get something done. Mars is also thrusting and always wanting to defend its boundaries and also push forwards. And in the sign of Sagittarius, Mars is really, it could be described as a bit sanctimonious. By the way, I've got Mars and Sagittarius, Mars and Mercury in Sagittarius, like they are right now. Can be a bit sanctimonious, but also, like Mars in the sign of Sagittarius can be very questy, so it goes on a quest, it goes on an adventure, it goes on a moral, spiritual, philosophical quest. It's looking for the truth. And so like truther movements and anything where you're sort of deep diving to find out what really happened, and also the story behind things, that really comes up. And so Mars here is going to be looking for the stories of your work and the stories of what you're doing as well. So it's less physical, less combative, but if it is in combat with anyone, it's because it's in a combat for your earnings, your purpose, so that it's more of the spirit rather than the flesh, I guess is what I'm saying. Now, Mercury is not very happy in the sign of Sagittarius. Mercury is very comfortable in Gemini and Virgo, the two signs it rules. And, it's very black and white, right and wrong, yes and no, factual, scientific kind of exploration of things. Whereas Sagittarius kind of energy share and information share is about the story, the context, the whys and the wherefores. It's very nuanced. And it's also very futuristic. It's wanting to link time and space a lot more. And so Mercury is very uncomfortable in the sign of Sagittarius. And when he goes retrograde as well, he's less externalized, he's more internalized. So right now you're creating a very strong story about yourself in relation to your purpose, which again, purpose, it can't be right or wrong or black and white. It's a description. And so there's this sort of story emerging about your purpose, a story emerging about, why you may or may not have self-esteem or confidence. And all of those things that might hold you back about earning money, it's all gathering in relevance and it's internalized. You'll be examining this quite a bit. And so when they come together, it is super strong. And so, like Mercury in a conjunction with Mars is bold thinking, strong words, powerful communications. But with this retrograde, it's revisionary, it's reflective, it's reimagining. And then obviously there's an element of spiritual courage. And that's why I've said in terms of this particular conjunction this week, and it's a hell of a theme for this week, we're talking about money, value, self-worth, and the stories getting rewritten. Also a little piece of advice here, avoid impulsive spending, because, Mars is really wanting to take action and he doesn't want to have no for an answer. Mars is just going to go, I've earned that money, I want that thing, I'm going to buy it. And of course, Mercury retrograde, Mercury also represents commerce and, where there might be a bit of confusion, where the messages might get a bit confused. So if you're impulsive with your spending, you might spend now, react later, regret later. You might overpay or underpay or think you're getting something, but you've picked the wrong deal. That's something, like I want to launch some things this weekend or this week. That's information for me to clock onto. Got to be really, really careful about the sort of minutiae between you and people that you might be selling or and so on and so forth. Also, it's a time to channel your motivation into how you earn and also how you deserve to earn, so this is a very focused period. Now, if we also piece it together with what was going on around the 20th of October, when these guys came into a conjunction at 19 degrees. By the way, where they had their conjunction is pretty much where Mercury's returning to on his retrograde. Mercury's almost going to get there. Mercury is going to turn on the 20th, at 20 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. So it's almost going back to the original the original conjunction. But this conjunction in our first house, I think, is a declaration of who we are. Like, how do you feel about yourself? What is your persona? What is it you want the world to know about you? How are you being perceived? What are you letting people know about yourself? How are you What's your appearance like? If people were telling a story about you, what would it be? So I think from a declaration of who you are that you were kind of making around the 20th of October, when all of a sudden, almost like a distillation of who you are was coming through. It's for you to see. Now, where we are this week, around the 12th, that is being rewritten in terms of how you let yourself be seen and how you might earn money based on the persona that you're putting out there. And then by the time the next conjunction comes up on the 18th of January at 26 degrees in the sign of Capricorn, it's going to be in your third house. This is when you are really, truly out in the marketplace again. This is really, truly when you're in your local community where people are getting to know you and really feeling the value of you that you've been building since, this began actually. And so to me, this is a run of energy it's almost like a carefully written uplift plan for yourself. So I actually think this is a really great time to rediscover who you are, maybe rediscover those parts. Because, I always think retrogrades are also about the past. Like we're going backwards, we're rewinding. So you're going back to learn more about the true value of you, so that when Mercury goes direct from the 29th of November, you're going back with this real thread of who you're becoming and what you've got to share out in the world. So I think it's a really important time. Now, if I also, pull in the moon placements, it's going to get even richer for this week ahead. So let's do that now. So if I go back to, this is the first picture. So on the 10th, the moon is in Cancer, and then it's going to go into the sign of Leo, which is your 10th house. So this is absolutely a time when we are in our element, when people are seeing us, when we're very public. This is a great time for uplift and to be seen visibly for what you do. And the moon is going to make a lovely trine to Mars first, and then later on it's going to make, not long after, it's going to make an exact trine with Mercury. That's great. The moon working with Mars and then Mercury in your second house from the 10th house. This is going to really, connect you to your career and your earnings. I think it's fantastic. Really, really helpful. And of course, there's the moon's also currently, at the start of this, also awakening, Neptune and Saturn in your 5th house. So there's a lot about what you're creating right now and how you can be seen for it and make some money from it. Thumbs up. So that's really good. So like the 10th and the 11th, I really see you standing in your power, your strength, and your creativity. Then as we're coming into the 12th, and this is the day when Mercury and Mars go exact in their conjunction, the moon's going to be in a square to both of them from the 11th house to the 2nd. And it feels like there's a little stumbling block in the road. And, the 11th house where the moon is, it often represents friends, networks, friends of friends, networking in high places. It represents your reach. Maybe the reach feels a bit unsafe. Maybe there's a difficulty with somebody that you're connected with in terms of earning money. And it may feel, because, the moon's going to go to a square with Mercury and Mars at the same time. It feels like a bit of a crisis point. Or if you're really ready for some very quick uplift, this might not be a crisis point, but this is a turning point for you in relationship to other people that you're networked with. And it might take some hard work, and it might be challenging. You might get some feedback that you're not expecting. However, the great thing with the moon is it moves quite quickly. And so for the rest of that time, the 13th, 14th, you're going to be working very hard to be understood, to get that feeling that, people really get you. And then the last part of this, as we're coming into the start of the next week, the moon is going to go into Libra. And at this point, the moon is in your 12th house, which is a place of imagination, a place of sleepiness, a place of meditation, where you can relax a little bit and really tune into, I guess, the really sort of internal soul-led bits, like your psyche. You're not really paying attention to your consciousness and your outer world. You're really deep inside, and this is really great working with Mercury retrograde. And so there's these lovely sextiles, and the first one will be the moon in a sextile to Mercury, followed soon after to a sextile to Mars. And to me, this is where you're coming up with the good stuff. Your imagination, your internal consciousness, like your unconscious mind, is bringing up little links and little helpful things, helpful suggestions to really help you get back on track. And it might be that there's something very deep that's happened in this week ahead that's going to come forward, and it'll be like a missing link that you need to know. So I think this is going to be quite good. Really good, in fact. As you come into Saturday and then later into Sunday, I suggest really just putting your feet up and relaxing and not stressing yourself out too much. Really enjoy it. Yeah, and then my final thought here, just to kind of wrap this up, is as Mercury and Mars do come into their final conjunction in January, they are going to also be linking up beautifully to Uranus in the 7th house. So if you've got some plans that you're ready to launch around the end of January, in particular, 18th of January, sort of middle to end, around that time, this conjunction is going to be working beautifully with Uranus in the 7th house. It's your 3rd house to your 7th house. And, the message about who you are and what you've developed about yourself and how much you deserve, how much you earn, you're going to be able to realize that in the marketplace or in your community and in your networks. So again, this is a very, very pivotal week. What you're learning about yourself is going to really set you up for future success. So that, I think, is bringing us to the end of this forecast for the week ahead. And, if this really speaks to you, if you really like the way I'm communicating this and you'd like more, then just consider joining my membership or getting a private reading with me. All of my details are below, like links of how you do it. And you can also find this on my channel page as well. So looking forward to catching up with you another time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, have a great week ahead. And I wonder what's possible, from what we've spoken about today. So have a great one. Catch up with you soon. Bye for now.